Hello everyone, Eternal Flame here, and I am here to talk about how Yuji got his power-up and the potential way that Sukuna might have helped Yuji to get even stronger in chapter 214, and to explain a line that has been on my mind for a while, that Sukuna made about Yuji. However, before we even get into my video and the theory on that and like my entire premise, be sure to subscribe to get my content like this, and let's get straight into the vid. Now, some of you guys might be wondering what line am I talking about, and I am talking about the line right here of Sukuna saying, "Oh right, this brat is from back then," as the answer to the question, where did this strength come from? And while I do think negative emotions and the negative emotions that have been building up to this point are a huge part of how Yuji had gotten stronger, I do believe that's only one half, or maybe like a quarter of how Yuji really got strong, and that we're about to get revealed to a massive thing about Yuji's power and Yuji's soul. I believe that this power-up came from Yuji gaining a new understanding of his soul, because he's finally being able to use his full soul to his full potency in an uncontrolled state. Now, this is going to be sounding pretty insane to a lot of you, so buckle up because this is going to be a lot and this is going to be a very fun theory. Now, there are a few questions I feel the need to answer first, which is how can the soul power up Yuji so physically much? Why do I think the soul was being suppressed up to this point? And where am I basing all of this on? I'm going to go over how the soul can power up Yuji so much. The reason I believe the soul can power Yuji up so much is because of something that was established incredibly early on by Mahito, which was the body was the soul and the soul was the body. Which does mean that if the soul was strong, the body would follow forward and the body would become strong in the same shape of the soul. But that is not the only reason that I believe that. Furthermore, we actually get direct proof that the soul is a completely different power system from cursed energy as a whole. Because when Mahito tries to touch Yuji and his soul to use Idol Transfiguration on him, Mahito comments on the fact that Sukuna has less cursed energy than Jogo in his free finger state, but Sukuna's soul is on a completely different level in comparison to Mahito and Jogo, which is why he's able to so easily deal with Mahito even when Mahito's using his domain. So yeah, the soul already being able to overpower cursed energy and being a completely different power source and being able to amplify a person is nothing new. In fact, that's Mahito's literal entire power set and move set. In fact, that is what Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing is taken to an extreme, shaping the soul to be in a much more powerful state, much more intent for killing and power. Man, I hate that name so much. But anyways, there's already been a precedent that it's possible to make your soul even more powerful and use your soul to amplify your body, as Mahito has shown and as Sukuna has shown. This has also been shown through other characters too, but it's a lot more subconscious. For example, Hanami liked fighting and enjoyed fighting, which ended up making them stronger in the fight against Todo and Yuji, and that was something Mahito had commented on in the past. Toji's soul got nerfed due to the fact that he wasn't really listening to himself and he betrayed who he truly was in his battle against Gojo. Maki also got a power-up from liberating herself and becoming free, becoming a fighter equal to that of Toji Zenin by the narrator's own statement, which is Toji at his peak. So yeah, there's already been a precedent that understanding yourself and understanding your soul is able to give you a massive power-up. So not just would finally being released of Sukuna and being released of the Burden from Shibuya power up Yuji, there's already been a precedent set for it. But I think it goes far deeper than just understanding your soul better and making your body stronger as a result. I believe Yuji's soul and the nature of his soul is already incredibly weird and an incredibly strong soul at that, because of something that we know his soul was capable of even doing without cursed energy, which is suppressing the strength of Sukuna's soul. Yuji's soul was so impressive that it was capable of hypothetically suppressing 20 fingers worth and Sukuna's full soul so long as it was fed to him on different days, which is incredibly insane for the physical strength of Yuji Itadori. And it makes a lot of sense of why Yuji was already starting out so physically strong, because the strength of his soul was physically strong, which shaped the body to be strong. Because Yuji's soul was so strong that he could beat all the Jujutsu Kaisen members without cursed energy powers, which included Maki, someone who didn't have any cursed energy powers on her, and had a weakened heavenly restriction. She didn't have a full heavenly restriction at that point, but she did have a weaker one, and Yuji could still beat her without cursed energy. And while I do believe this is due to some sus stuff that Kenjaku did, I think it goes far beyond that. Because Yuji's soul is incredibly interesting, especially because of the fact Kenjaku is their mom. Kenjaku expects many great things from Yuji. So I believe that Yuji's soul, someone who's incredibly strong with their soul and able to suppress Sukuna's soul in the past. The reason that I believe that is because of the fact Sukuna does recognize him as the brat from back then. But I had a thought, what if they weren't from the same era as Sukuna? What if they were from an era after and they were the first person to successfully contain Sukuna's soul? Now this is going to be quite a lot, so I'm going to explain why my brain went down this thought process and why I think this actually might be true. There is quite a lot we know about Sukuna that in hindsight is really weird that we know about. For example, that it's a 1 in a million chance that a body is capable of taking in Sukuna and not dying. And I started to question something randomly. How do we know this? Actually, how do we know this other than if there were vessels of Sukuna before in the past and people who tried to eliminate Sukuna's fingers and were capable of it but just couldn't find all 20 fingers? And that they had been trying to execute Sukuna for a while but eventually the fingers got lost to time. Probably somewhere around Kashimo's era because Kashimo is not aware of who Sukuna is. So there was likely just some weird era where they were aware of Sukuna. And it's not like it's some Heian era stuff and Heian era knowledge because no one there knew how to do it to themselves. They just knew it was a possible thing to exist, and it's clearly a specific Sukuna type thing and not just an in general thing. The reason we know this is because of all of the incarnate players in the culling games that we see and how they immediately get associated with their vessels. Even though it's their souls getting suppressed by the vessels, it's just Sukuna instantly kills his vessels if they are not compatible with him instead. This also would explain something else because of some future knowledge we got after, which is the fact that Megumi was able to send Sukuna's curse energy coming from Yuji back in the beginning of the show, even before Yuji had eaten a finger. You could argue that it was the residues from the cursed energy box that Yuji was carrying around. I doubt it. I think in truth he was sensing the slight amounts of cursed energy that Yuji had inside of him due to him being a Sukuna vessel in the past. The reason that I believe that is because of something we find out in the most recent chapter, that the longer that you have Sukuna in you, the more and more soaked you become in Sukuna's cursed energy. Yuji had Sukuna in him for 7 months, and because of that he was soaked in Sukuna's cursed energy. So just imagine what a previous vessel would be like. Now there is one big thing that is spitting in the face of the theory, which is the entire Sukuna not immediately recognizing Yuji. Now there are two ways to approach this line in my opinion. The first, and what I actually think it is that Gege is doing a slight little retcon and he had no idea if he wanted to make Sukuna and Yuji connected by that point, because no matter what, Sukuna knows who Yuji is because of the entire, oh right, this brat is from back then. That's the boring answer, and there is an actual better answer that I think we can get, which is Sukuna recognized who Yuji is later because of a specific reason. Now I'm going to get into the third part of the video that I said earlier on, which is how Yuji's soul has been semi-suppressed up to this point, up until now, because I believe Yuji has been subconsciously suppressing his soul in a way, and what he's been doing by subconsciously suppressing his soul is using that part of his soul to keep Sukuna down and keep Sukuna suppressed, making his soul not at full potency. This would make a lot of sense because Yuji wouldn't have to consciously keep Sukuna down and keep him fully focused on keeping Sukuna down, because Sukuna can just easily be suppressed by Yuji when inside of his body. But this would also explain something else. How Yuji immediately after Sukuna left his body got physically stronger on top of the massive cursed energy buff due to all the massive amounts of negative emotions that he was getting all at once. And finally, the most important part of this all, only after Sukuna is freed from Yuji's body was he truly able to recognize Yuji, when his soul would be at full potency and no longer focused on keeping Sukuna suppressed, when he would be at full potency and full power and fighting against Sukuna. Only then was Sukuna actually able to actually sense who Yuji was and recognize Yuji as that brat from back then, and then realize what Kenjaku did. What I believe Kenjaku did was turn the soul of that person into a cursed object and then fed it to Yuji as an infant, allowing the two souls to meld into one, something we know is possible through all of the Culling Games players, and allowed Yuji's soul to develop naturally, forgetting who he was for a bit, even though that memory is still conscious within him somewhere, because we know for a fact it is because of one of Yuji's early memories of the fact he knows who his mom is, because of the fact Yuji does remember the entire memory of his mother with stitches. And the final nail in the coffin for all of this for me is that Yuji was immediately after given a book to understand the soul even better. Yuji has some weird things going on with his soul, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see his soul ascend to another level and be completely unrivaled, because I think Yuji's soul is going to be on another level entirely, and I think we're only starting to see the true potential of Yuji's soul, because once Yuji understands his soul, he's going to be on an entirely different level, as we saw with Mahito understanding his soul through the Black Flash. there's already a precedent for it. There's a precedent that taking your soul and understanding your soul sets you on an entirely different league. And the further you get for understanding your soul, the stronger and stronger you're going to get. And Yuji now had a month to learn and understand his soul. So that is why I think Yuji's soul was the reason he got even stronger against Sukuna, and why Yuji's soul will keep getting stronger and allowing him to get strong enough to help in this battle. Anyways, that was just my theory though on Yuji's soul and what Sukuna meant by the entire Yuji is from back then type line. I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are, and I also want to suggest a video to you guys that's on the subject of this, which is how I think Yuji's soul ability is going to be able to suppress Sukuna's soul in the future. I'm gonna see y'all later. Peace.